and political explanation.
Yes.
Thus, they are at the heart of philosophy as well as social and political sciences. So, different positions on structure and agent reflect different kinds of epistemology. So, these are like structuralism, voluntarism, uh, structurations, and critical realism. So, the structuralism perspective is the structure agent which offers superiority to the structure. So, it presents a perspective that can be simple and the explanations are not founded on motivations, determinations, or any kind of strategies, since they are considered that they spend as a product for the structures which uh, are finally, you know, what we say, determined the fact. So, structuralism is closely linked with determinism, functionalism, and all forms of fatalism. So the basis of structuralism thought in social sciences, if I talk about social sciences, is that uh, social science must penetrate beneath the surface of social life to find what is beneath, to find what is the foundation, what is the underlying foundation that organizes the superficial process. So in France, Althusser, as a structuralist in Marxism, he severely criticizes Marx's view and he regards superficial impacts on infrastructure. Contrary to the orthodox view, says Marx is a young Marx. He believes that the state structures and the economic ideology, they do have an effect, they do have an impact on infrastructure. So the which is the production relationship. So he makes an example of an organic structuralistic relationship. So Louis Strauss, again, he is a professor of social anthropology, who is among the co-founder of the authenticity of structure in anthropology. His first major work, namely The Basic Structure of Kinship, published in 1949, he made him famous in this field. Again, Jean Piaget, I don't know how do I pronounce the last name. The Swiss psychologist. He maintains that the elements of a structure are determined by rule, and the structure is determined according to the rule. So structures are things which are formed by human beings, patterned and systematic relations which each other. So uh, this is what Saussure told in the structuralism epistemology. So Levi Strauss, the French anthropologist, he applied structuralism approach in developed linguistics for the social sciences. So, in the view of structuralism, the emphasis is that the singular unit of the system become meaningful only in terms of their relationship with each other. So that makes a determined system. So the basis of structuralism thought in social sciences is that uh, social science must go beneath the surface of the social life. The other day we were talking about the iceberg theory, that there is more inside the water than what we can see on the surface of water. So there he is also talking that we must penetrate beneath the surface of social life to find the underlying foundation that that organizes the superficial processes. There was one more person, I guess altimeter, I don't remember the name, but he said that in respect to three economic, political, and ideological levels, or if we term this as categories, in respect to these three categories, each one is separately, you know, had its own history of evolution and conflict as well as internal dynamism. So, contrary to orthodox Marxist, conflicts and changes in the society cannot be reduced to a united central conflict. So, orthodoxy says that all social, economical, political, and ideological processes in each period regenerate only one main conflict and not, that is the main base of the conflict from all the three, all the four. So structuralistic look in general sense suggests that individuals all actions are formed in a causal relationship which is affected by society in a super structural form. So the researcher, the structurist researcher, he pursues two objectives. The first one is discovering and explaining the deep structure. The second is explaining every phenomenon in the direction of that deep structure. So again, um, mental structuralism, if we talk that, that considers individuals acts in the super structural field, and the appearance of both is not a true relationship. That what Freud has to say about mental structuralism. So um, yeah, it is also, structuralism is based on the principle that without accepting and applying them in the studies, structuralistic result cannot be achieved. So until and unless we don't apply them, we won't get any result. So the most important thinkers in the review of the views will be studied. So structuralism has a fundamental difference with the two streams of thought, subjective phenomenology and individualistic activism. Yes, sir, I have prepared until that.
Yeah, but you haven't discussed Jonathan Culler's essay, have you? Because that
Um,
is what you are supposed to do. You have given general overview of structuralism, which is a good thing because it's a revision of many of the ideas that we did. But you are supposed to discuss this essay.
I think,
So
sir,
have you
that
did?
skipped my mind. May I do it
Okay,
in the tomorrow's class?
fine, fine.
So,
Right.
can you repeat the essay's name?
Essay is Structuralism and Literature by Jonathan Culler. That's in
Jonathan.
the set in the
What's the last name of the person?
Culler, Culler.
Okay, okay.
So that's the essay which I have sent you in that bunch of readings that you are supposed to do.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
You have
All
received
right.
that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we were discussing structuralism last time, right? And one of the any questions about structuralism from any one of you? Doubts, queries? So can anyone tell me what is structuralism? Riddhi Shikha Tatsam. If someone asks you what is structuralism, how will you answer that question?
Sure. So shall I?
Yeah, yeah.
This is a like Structuralism is because can we say so, like it is regarded language as a closed and stable system?
That's the view about language. I am asking you, what is structuralism?
Mm, why not?
So do I have to answer?
I think someone else, because you have already made a
Yeah.
presentation on the
Yeah.
topic.
Mhm.
So someone else should try with this.
Mm.
So can we say that structuralism is, in a way, understanding language or linguistics in a broader context? So, say in the context of culture or any other context for that matter. So, can we say that structuralism is understanding language in a
But that
in
can
a
also be sociolinguistics, right?
okay
But structuralism is not sociolinguistics.
Sir,
Though
sir,
okay
could you say
one
like
of the ideas of, yeah, go ahead. That's it.
yeah, so sir, like structuralism is a method of interpreting and analyzing such things like language, literature, and society.
What is that methodology?
Like that focuses on contrasting ideas or elements of structure.
Okay. So now you are moving a bit closer, right? Okay. Anyone else wants to try? Shikha with the what Tatsam says is almost correct.
Hmm.
Tatsam, can you please repeat what you just said, and
Yeah,
I think I will
so
add on to that.
yeah, like structuralism is a method of interpreting and analyzing such things like language, literature, and society, which focuses on contrasting ideas or elements of structure.
And why does it do that?
So to relate with the whole structure.
And what is that whole structure?
The whole structure.
Shikha, would you like to try with the not that you are wrong, but you need to clarify it a bit, make it more precise. That's some. What you
Yes,
have
sir.
said is not incorrect, but it has to be clarified and made more precise. Yeah. So what do you mean by whole structure, and why should you focus on that?
Because sir, like it works to uncover the structures that underlie all the things that humans do, think, perceive, and
But
feel.
why do you want to uncover these structures, and what are these structures? Good. My
Uh,
question is always not to make you wrong, but to make you take you further in the inquiry, right? So that you get clarity and you get some sort of accuracy in what we are discussing. Yeah.
So in the last class, I think we discussed that. I mean, you were talking about something called the arrangements of part in a larger whole,
Hmm.
and then you're talking about how structures are made up of uh, absences and differences.
Okay.
So,
So why do you want to uncover that?
sorry, sir, could you please
And
repeat?
why do you want to uncover that? Why do you want to focus upon that?
So, to understand language better,
to understand uh, a particular
Okay.
subject
Particular
in
what?
depth. Hmm.
What do you mean by language? Riddhi?
So language is a means of communication. But
Okay,
then of
what is
course
it?
sorry
What
sir.
is it made of? What is it made up of?
So there are, I mean, it can, language can be, what is it made up of? So it is made up of words, signs, symbols.
Only? How does something become a word?
So because of that attached meaning to it. So like we were discussing, like when we say dog, the word dog makes sense because
So
we
how,
associate it with.
how do you associate, or what associates word dog with that animal?
Well, our understanding, I mean, that is what we have been taught, that this is something, this is a
So
four-legged
what have
creature.
you been, so what is it called? What you were taught, उसे क्या कहते हैं? That this animal and this word are associated. ये जो आपको सिखाया गया,
Yes, sir.
वो क्या सिखाया गया? What is it that you were taught? Yeah, आपको सिखाया गया ना? This
Yes, sir.
word
Yes, sir.
pen stands for this object I'm holding in
Yes,
my
sir.
hand. So that is how it means. So that is how the word pen means this object, right?
Yes, sir.
So you were taught this. So what were you taught? That's what I'm asking you. Am I making the question clear? You were
Yes, sir.
taught
Yes, sir.
something, right? You were taught
Yes,
something.
sir.
So
Yes,
what is
sir.
it? What is that which was taught to you?
Hmm.
Any other person wants to try? That's all.
That's something you want to try.
Auntie, you want to try?
Yeah, sir, just
Yeah.
repeat it. So, what was your question?
My question is, uh, you were taught, says Riddhi, that the word pen stands for this object,
Hmm.
right? So I am asking you, what is it that you were taught? क्या सिखाया गया? आपको कौन सी चीज सिखाई गई? This means this. तो उसे क्या कहते हैं? This means this.
Sir,
So,
semiotics?
no.
So, like, sir, could we give that example? Like, could we not example, but could we say like the example of sign, signifier?
Right. So this is signifier word pen, and this
Hmm.
is the referent object.
Hmm.
Signified is what is in your mind, the idea of pen, right?
Hmm.
So this is not the signified. I hope you get it.
No, sir.
For example, think of a culture in which there is no practice of writing. ऐसे culture, मान लो एक ऐसा कल्चर क्या लिखने की परंपरा ही नहीं है, ऐसे होते हैं कल्चर्स, राइट? तो उनको आप दिखाओगे दिस इज पेन, तो उसे समझ में आ जाएगा क्या है ये?
No.
No, sir. We have to
क्योंकि
explain
उसके
that.
साथ एक आइडिया जुड़ा है. हाँ, एक्सप्लेन, क्या एक्सप्लेन करना पड़ेगा?
So,
The
sir, we have to
significance of
broke
the
down the
pen.
sign. Sir, we have to broke down the sign into the idea.
हाँ, तो आइडिया कहाँ पे होता है
Signified में, sir.
और वो कहाँ पे होता है?
Now,
यहाँ
sir,
पे
like there is signifier which creates the arbitrary concept of meaning.
मैं पूछ रहा हूँ signified कहाँ पे?
अच्छा मतलब सर पेन इज अ साइन, उसको मैं आइडिया में
Pen is not a sign. Word pen is the signifier and this is the object or the referent जिसे मैं refer कर रहा हूँ. पर ये signified नहीं है. और वो क्यों signified नहीं है? Because think of a culture which does not have this idea of writing with a pen. Right? If you show them this is pen, will they understand what it is?
नो
In
सर,
itself? No. Why? You are right.
because they have never written anything, so they don't have idea of what is pen.
Correct. So idea of pen को signified कहते हैं.
आइडिया ऑफ, अच्छा हाँ
तो
अंडरस्टैंड
वो मैं पूछ रहा हूँ वो कहाँ पे है signified? यहाँ पे है signified.
No, sir, it's in our minds.
Exactly. It's in your mind. It's a mental it's a mental concept.
Yes, sir.
Pen is not an object but a concept.
I understand sir.
Right? And that concept is in your mind. So that concept has to be understood. And that's why even those words which do not have a referent, like phoenix or a centaur or dragon, उसे concepts है हमारे पास. वो चीजें दिखाई नहीं देती आपको.
Okay, yes, sir.
Understand sir.
Right? So language is made up of signifier and signified. That is the concept in our mind. And you were taught. What were you taught, Riddhi? Now let's go back to your question. आपको पढ़ाया गया. क्या पढ़ाया गया आपको?
Oh.
Pankti, would you like to respond? Riddhi said that you were taught the word dog means that animal. So what were you actually taught? That was my question. I hope you get my question. What you were taught is called a code. Code is a kind of rule which says that the word pen and the concept of pen are associated. आपको ये association सिखाया गया, right? ये rule सिखाया गया. Association and a rule is called a code, right? Which connects signifier with signified, right? So language क्या होता है?
So sir, like language
So
means like
language is a system of signs.
it's a method of human communication, sir.
Is it a method? What kind of method?
Like sir, which consists of words that is used in structured and conventional way.
Okay, conventional what? Conventional क्या
Like
होता है?
speech, writing, gesture. Like before many years there were phonocentric and like that.
Is it possible to think of language as made up of codes which connect particular sound signifier with particular meaning, the idea? Can you think of language as made up of codes? Can you think of
Yes,
language?
sir. Yes, sir.
Right? And language is not a way of doing something. Right? For example, I raise a finger 1 और मेरा एक कोड बनाता हूं मैं किसी के साथ. That 1 मैं कहता हूं तब मुझे आपको कॉफी ला के देनी है. 2 कहो तो आप चाय ला के दो. तो मैं कोड बनाता हूं. So 1 means tea, 2 means coffee. So as I am talking with somebody, I tell one of the students, bring me this. So that person brings tea for me. Right? So that's a code. So that's a language. I have established a language, a code language. right? So language is made up of these codes, and these are conventional association. These are man-made. These are artificial conventions which produce meaning. So when I say word dog, you know what I'm talking about. आपके सामने कहीं पे कुत्ता ना भी हो, right? Because you have an idea, concept of dog in your mind, and that's how my words make meaning to you, right? So words and languages is a different thing. Word is what I produce, the signifier. Language is made up of signs.
So,
Is
sir,
it
can
getting?
we?
Is
Yes,
it
sir. So,
getting?
could,
Oh,
sir,
So
go
what
ahead.
did you
could we take the example
say?
of Lord Krishna? Like we have not seen God till now, but we have
Hmm.
that idea. Whenever someone will say there is a temple of Lord Krishna, we will imagine, okay, there is a God with blue color and with this cloth and with this.
Correct. Correct. And temple भी आपके पास जिनका आइडिया है टेम्पल का वो जानते हैं, right? So idea of temple and Krishna is in your mind, right? These are the signifiers, and the words Krishna and temple are the signifiers. Yeah, Pankti, what were you asking?
Sir, I was unable to hear your last sentence before the this Krishna conversation.
So language is made up of codes and signs. Speech is made up of signifiers, uh,
Right.
and they carry meaning because you know the language, you know the codes, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
knowing meaning of something is knowing a code of something, not knowing the reference to something. That is, you know the idea of something through the code, right? So that's what Saussure says. And Saussure says that the object of study should not be words, but the language, which means the set of codes that should be the object of your study,
Yes, sir.
right? He's shifting what is the object of study of linguistics. Linguistics before that concerned primarily with words. They thought of language as made up of words, right? But Saussure says language is a grammar, a set of conventions and signs, right? Which made the meaning possible. And that is what you should be studying, not the individual words. So the object of your study, आप क्या पढ़ रहे हो linguistics में? आप क्या पढ़ रहे हो? Words नहीं पढ़ रहे हो, languages पढ़ रहे हो, lang पढ़ रहे हो, parole नहीं पढ़ रहे हो. Does that make any sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
when you read a poem, right, you will be reading not words, but the grammar which produces poetic meaning, or the set of assumptions and codes which produce poetic meaning. Am I
Sir, but
making?
doesn't that become a part of language?
Yes, yes. So language as lang, right? Something which we have internalized as set of codes and conventions and assumptions,
Okay.
uh, right? That we have in our minds, rather than what is there on the page merely. So, structuralist approach to study of literature will not study what is the meaning of the poem, right? It's not primarily an interpretive act, but it is uh, excavation of what makes particular meaning possible. To give an example, say for example, the color white in Hindu culture may indicate widowhood, for example, right?
Yes.
White color may indicate virginity and purity of the bride in a Christian wedding. So these are two different ideas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So there is same signifier means two different signifieds because of two different codes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And because
Sir,
these two codes are different, these are two different languages.
okay.
Yes,
So,
Ritik.
sir, can we say that structuralism is understanding uh, the different codes in a different cultural context.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
And those codes are called structures. That is why it is structuralism,
Okay.
right? And it's all made up of differences according to Saussure. That each element of a structure does not have any positive presence, but it has only differences from each other. So the is recognizable because it is different from non-the. Or is recognizable to you because it's different from non-or. Maybe A or U or whatever other vowel sounds you produce. And G is recognizable to you because it's different from other consonants which are different from G, right? So dog is recognizable only through the differences. There is no positive entity called the.
Okay.
That's what he's arguing. And that becomes the core idea of post-structuralism as well. Okay, so taking this further, what do we mean by structuralism? That you are trying to understand the codes and conventions which produce meaning rather than what is the meaning of particular thing. Right? So, for example, wearing particular clothes will mean particular thing, right? In a particular culture. Yes, no,
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
right? And so, what is it that mean? What meanings do a particular hairstyle indicate, or a particular color of cloth of your top indicates, right? Or a particular fashion indicate. So, fashion can be understood as a semiotic system of signs, right? Whose structures can be uncovered through structuralist methodology. So what is it that produces a particular meaning? And as Riddhi was talking, it may change from context to context, right? For example, jeans would have a very different meaning in American context and in Indian context. Does that make any sense? For example, jeans was worn by workers, mazdoor in America because it was tough, right? And in the colder environment.
In
So
India, jeans is a fashion. Like
yeah,
people
yeah,
used to
it
wear
shows how
5,000 rupees jeans.
modern
Yeah,
you are.
yeah. Understand.
उसका मीनिंग चेंज हो जाता है, सिग्निफाइड चेंज हो जाता है, सिग्निफायर वही है बट सिग्निफाइड चेंज हो जाता है. So what does structuralism open up is this code. It would point out that the code which establishes genes as a sign of being hip or fashionable in India, right? And something which stands for person from lower uh, class who cannot afford expensive clothing and who needs strong material because they have to work physically. उनके लिए jeans would mean something else, right? So it shows how meanings happen. So significance or meaning is what is analyzed as being produced by structures, right? So that is what is structuralism. Structuralism uncovers the lang behind a particular parole. So genes can be understood as parole or word, पर उसका meaning is produced by lang और उसके codes. Am I making some sense?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear what is structuralism?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Sir, so is human mind structure is evident from his social behavior. That's what we can conclude, right?
Social behavior is also semiotic in the sense that our behavior is governed by certain codes and conventions and assumptions. For example, you cannot laugh at WhatsApp joke in the time of somebody's funeral. या बेसरों में आप गए हो और आप जोर जोर से हंस नहीं सकते, और अगर आपको दुख नहीं भी हो रहा है तो भी आप बहुत दुखी हो ऐसा दिखाना पड़ता है, because that's the code and that's the convention, right?
So, sir, genes is a signifier, right?
Yeah. So behavior can also be a signifier whose signified changes in a cultural context.
Done.
For example, eating with fork and spoon in India would show that you are ultra modern, but in the West, it's the way of life. जैसे हम हाथ से खाते हैं वैसे वो चम्मच और fork से खाते हैं. It doesn't mean that you are from higher class or you are modern or whatever.
Yes.
Right? So the meanings are culture specific because culture is made up of these codes. So what we understand by culture, and I think structuralism is also opening up a very important discipline called cultural studies, right? Culture studies all phenomena, cultural phenomena as a system of science, similar to language. So you may talk of grammar of fashion, जैसे कि इस टॉप या इस शर्ट के साथ यही ट्राउजर जा सकती है, तो ये ग्रामर हुआ. इट्स अ syntagmatic relationship, right? You are connecting top with trouser, or you get what I'm saying,
Yes.
right? And Sashar would argue that there are two axes of on which structure is structured. I don't know if again I'm making any sense. One is syntagmatic and other is paradigmatic. Language दो axis पे structured होती है. D, O, G, dog. So D is selected from various options. Say for example L, O, G, log होगा. तो L की जगह D select करते हो. So relation between D and L is paradigmatic. I hope I am making any sense. Log नहीं बोल सकते, आप dog बोल रहे हो, right? So you are selecting instead of L or B, bog is another word, log is another word, hog is another word. You are saying dog, so you are selecting sound dog, d instead of l, g.
Got it.
Right? It's paradigmatic, and you are combining it with o or g. So this axis is the syntagmatic axis, D O G, and D के जगह पे L हो सकता है, इसके जगह पे बॉग हो सकता है, हॉग हो सकता है, तो उसे पैराडिग्मेटिक एक्सिस कहते हैं. पैराडिग्मेटिक, सिंटैग्मेटिक. इट कैन आल्सो बी कॉल्ड choice, right? And chain, axis of choice and axis of chain. Is that much clear? Any questions about this?
Sir,
So
just explain syntagmatic. I'm done with paradigmatic.
Yeah, syntagmatic यानी एक दूसरे को जोड़ते हैं. So bird is flying in the sky, right? It's a syntagmatic arrangement. At the level of fashion, it might be, say for example, lavender shirt goes with a particular trouser and particular colored shoes. That's a syntagmatic analysis of fashion. But instead of lavender colored shirt, you may opt for maybe a different colored shirt, right? So that is paradigmatic. Bird is flying in the sky, right? I hope you get.
Yes.
ये जो horizontal axis है उसे chain की कहते हैं और उसे syntagmatic कहते हैं. Syntactical भी होता है. और and all elements of language are structured in that way. Whether it is a sentence or a word, whether it is a morpheme or a phoneme, whether it's a clause or a sentence or a paragraph, they are connected syntagmatically.
Sir, I didn't understand.
What you didn't understand?
The second word, sig. how do we pronounce that?
Syntagmatic. Syntagmatic.
Syntagmatic.
Syntagmatic axis of language is a set of rules which you follow to write word, pankti, lalani, right? To create a linear. So instead, you would select one word per sound, per one phoneme, if you know a bit of linguistics, instead of other options available, right? So these are two set of rules, two set of ways in which you combine elements of language, or any semiotic system is follows these two set of rules, right? एक है आप जोड़ते कैसे हो दो चीजों को, उसके रूल्स है, उसे सिंटैग्मेटिक कहते हैं. Bird flies in the sky, right? Like that. और दूसरा सेट ऑफ रूल्स है आप ऑप्शन सिलेक्ट कैसे करते हो, right? Instead of bird you may say sparrow flies in the sky or crow flies in the sky. So crow, sparrow और bird के बीच का रिश्ता है, उसे पैराडिग्मेटिक रिश्ता कहते हैं. Bird flies in the sky, ये सब एलिमेंट्स के बीच का रिश्ता सिंटैग्मेटिक कहते हैं. Is that clear or any more doubts?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So taking some of these ideas, some of the Russian formalists, right? And Russian formalism is a school of the study of literature primarily, right? That developed in the first half of 20th century in Russia and later Soviet Union. So there were two centers. One was Moscow and other was Prague. These were the two cities where group of linguists following Saussure and many others started studying literature, right? And most of their writings are in Russian and they were later translated into English. So this is the first part of 20th century, the same period in which you have a new criticism, right? And you have F.R. Lewis and T.S. Eliot, new critics. जब न्यू क्रिटिक्स अमेरिका में काम कर रहे थे तब ये लोग रशिया में और सोवियत यूनियन में काम कर रहे थे. They were called Russian formalists, right? Why were they called formalists? Because they would emphasize form as the most important aspect of study of language, right? Like I. Richards, like Ian Brooks, they would make a distinction between language of literature and ordinary everyday language. This is a central distinction for Russian formalists as well. That literature is a different set of conventions and codes. It's a language within language. Am I making some sense? There is already a language, but there is also a language within a language. That means it's the special language of poetry and novel and short stories. And the example is given by Jonathan Culler on page number 290, if you have that in front of you. Language within language क्या कहते हैं?
Which book, sir?
अपना essays की जो handout दिया था मैंने.
Okay. हाँ.
उसमें Jonathan
Yes,
Culler.
sir. I have that, लेकिन वो like it's tilted, so.
Okay. So he says there is an ordinary sentence like yesterday I went into town and brought a lamb. Yesterday I went into a town and brought a lamb. Right? This is an ordinary sentence जो आप कहते हो. मैं कल मैं गांव गया और एक दिया लेके आया. For example, this is ordinary sentence. It does not mean, it means what? मैं कल गांव गया और एक दिया लेके आया. But if you arrange it in a particular way, such that yesterday and I, first line, went into town and brought a lamp this way. You have this in front of you or you don't?
Yes, I am finding the page number 219.
290.
Yes, sir.
Just a second.
All of you have that in front of you? Do you have it?
So finding
Yes,
the
sir.
PDF that you have sent, right, in which
Ah,
all
ah.
the essays are there.
That's it's on page number 115, PDF ka page number, not the one given on the book.
Okay. Anyway, if you don't find it, ये लो. मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? मैं screen share करता हूँ.
So find it, sir.
You have found it?
Yeah, I found it, sir.
Yeah, देखो. This is an ordinary sentence. You can see the screen. This is an ordinary sentence. Now this is arranged in this way. And the meaning of the whole thing changes. Can you see what I am sharing? Yesterday
Yes, sir.
would take on a kind of symbolic significance, right? Brought may have some symbolic significance, right? I would take on something, some other meaning, and a lamp would take on some other significance. Yesterday may stand for any yesterday, yesterday of my life. Do you get what I'm saying? It can be yesterday of my life. I may mean anybody, reader or writer, whoever. I may be a kind of general I. But if I say I, here it means I, Sachin, right? But this I does not mean Sachin. It may mean Tatsam, it may mean Shikha, it may mean Pankti, it may mean anyone. Human self. Buying has its own connotations. And a lamp has its own connotations. So all the connotations, I hope you know the difference between connotation and denotation, right? Denotations are the dictionary meaning. Connotations are associational meanings. So lamp has a lot of symbolic meanings. What symbolic meanings can lamp have? Can anyone tell me?
So maybe light of knowledge.
Light of knowledge. What else?
The light of positivity.
Light of positivity. And yesterday can mean what?
There could be
So
several reasons like yesterday, like we can say yesterday in some situations it may be a negative things. In some situation it may be a positive things.
Right? So how? How will it be negative and positive? In what situations yesterday will mean negative?
Yeah, suppose for some people yesterday, like yesterday was a not good day,
Okay.
so we can
तो ये तो if yesterday was not a good day, तो इस इन लाइन का मतलब क्या हो जाता है? क्या होगा? कुछ चेंज हो जाएगा?
नहीं सर, चेंज हो जाएगा, नहीं चेंज नहीं होगा सर, हाँ चेंज हो जाएगा, मतलब
क्या चेंज होगा? You are right.
मतलब सर मैं लाइट लेने जा रहा हूँ, इट मींस yesterday was not a good day, so I went to the market and brought a lamp, so it means I am going and buying positivity from
Very
the
good.
market.
लाइफ में इतना अंधेरा था और लैंप कहीं पे मुझे कोई भी होप नहीं था, तो मुझे खरीद के लाना पड़ा होप. राइट.
Yes, sir.
So how is a non-poetic statement transformed into a poetic one is through set of assumptions. You start assuming that yesterday has more meanings than uh, what we have in everyday conversation. ये सब मीनिंग आप इसमें नहीं निकालोगे. जब कोई कहेगा yesterday I went into town and brought a lamp, but when I write it in this way, it becomes whole range of symbols and meanings and interpretations are possible. Yeah, Pankti, what
So,
would you say?
sir, the poetic form has more connotations than the
Yeah,
normal one.
yeah. We read more connotations into it because we know that poetic has more connotations into it. ये हमारी धारणा है. It's an assumption, presupposition that yesterday can mean anything and lamp can mean positivity and when I brought a lamp उसके पहले अंधेरा था. So andhera has a symbolic significance, right? So you can see how significance, literary significance emerges out of form. Can you
Sir, there
see
is
this?
a first line. Yesterday I went into town and brought a lamp. Sir, could we say it a sigmatic, syntagmatic?
नहीं.
This is first line.
हाँ. तो syntagmatically भी arrangement अलग हो गया है ना यहाँ पे.
सर ऊपर वाला सर. Yesterday I went to
हाँ.
town and brought a lamp.
इसका syntagmatic देखो दोनों का syntagmatic है,
अच्छा.
right? Both are linearly connected. और linearity अलग किस्म की है. ये एक सीधे लाइन में जाता है. यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, ये ऐसे जाता है. So syntagmatic arrangement has changed. That is a poetic convention. The form has changed. Can you see this? Which changes the interpretative possibilities of the text. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
For
sir.
example, a simple sentence. दूसरा एक ले लेते हैं. Very ordinary sentence ले सकते हो आप. ऐसे आप कह रहे हो, right? But suppose I make this like this. तो उसका मीनिंग क्या होगा?
So here the person can be hungry for anything,
हाँ.
but when it is just I am hungry in a single line, that can be the the hungry from stomach meaning.
Right. अब यहाँ पे symbolic है, right? Hunger.
Yes, sir.
And this is very specific. It is about the speaker. Speaker की hunger के बारे में है, right? मुझे नाश्ता चाहिए, मुझे भूख लगी है. पर ये किसी आय कोई भी हो सकता है. You get that? ये पढ़ने वाले का भी आय हो सकता है. So how does form produce literary meaning is what formalism studies. What does formalism study? How changing the form, how form changes the meaning of the language.
Sir, this reminds me of that short story, Ernest Hemingway's Hills Like White Elephants.
Mm.
So it talks about white, the hills which are white, and it is a symbolism that nobody wants to see a white elephant because it is odd one out.
So in structuralism, right, and Russian formalism, you study form. How does form produce meaning? Right? That is what you study, and that's why it's called formalism. Right? And Russian formalists would try to make their methodology scientific, in the sense that they said we want to develop science of language, and this is very similar to new critics. This is very similar to Matthew Arnold, who wanted disinterested criticism, who wanted people like T.S. Eliot, who would insist on rigorous methodology to read poem as a poem, for example. Right. So you can see that in Russian formalism, they are trying to make science of literature. This is a very important feature. Now that you are clear about what is form, right? Form का मतलब क्या है? फॉर्म का मतलब है कि लिटरेचर एक अलग किस्म की लैंग्वेज है, यानी लिटरेचर का फॉर्म और एवरीडे यूज ऑफ लैंग्वेज का फॉर्म अलग है. दैट इज व्हाट इट मींस, राइट? Literature has a different form. It's a different type of grammar. It's a different structure. Different presuppositions, different codes come into play. And Jonathan Culler calls it literary competence. Right? So that is what formalism means. And they wanted to make it science of language. And people like Boris Eichenbaum, let me again share. Present. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
A critic scholar named Boris Eichenbaum, right, would argue that the object of the study of literature is literariness. These are two very important Russian formalists. They would argue that the object of study of literature is literariness. What does it mean? Can anyone tell me? आप जब कहते हो आपको कोई पूछता है कि आप क्या पढ़ते हो लिटरेचर में, तो आपका जवाब क्या होता है जनरली व्हेन योर फ्रेंड्स आस्क यू व्हाट डू यू स्टडी? If I ask Shikha, your friends have asked you, Shikha, ever what do you study in literature? तो आप जवाब क्या देते हो? Is Shikha there or she has gone to sleep? Shikha, are you there or you're asleep? Anyone? Okay. Pankti, tell me. If somebody asks you, क्या पढ़ते हो?
So we tell them that we study literatures, different types of period, and works done in that period.
Okay.
And we critically analyze the text.
Okay. But these people define, you can see that the आप क्या पढ़ते हो लिटरेचर में, तो लिटरेरीनेस पढ़ते हो.
We say literariness.
Right. And what do you mean by literariness? Can anyone attempt to explain?
Sir, maybe it's the essence of
Okay.
essence of the particular thing, just like Dr. Avadesh Kumar Singh, he used to tell us that for example, the hoarseness of horse makes him a horse.
Okay, the essence of. So what is this essence of? So literariness is essence of what? Very good. Very good.
It's
Sir,
the
so
essence
literalness is
of
the essence of
literature.
organization of language.
No, Pankti was saying something.
Okay.
Then you
So
can.
I think
Organization of language? No.
it it's the essence of literature.
Literature. Literariness is the essence of literature. Right? It answers the question, what makes literature literary? क्या बनाता है literature को literary? क्या बनाता है? Anyone wants to try?
It's literariness.
So what is that literariness?
Sir, I didn't get you. मतलब उसका characteristic.
What is that? How?
Uh,
What makes literature literary? What is literariness? Yeah, Ritik.
So can we say the style of writing,
The
or
style of writing. Okay.
so also uh, maybe the kind of different literary devices that we use in a particular work. So we can say that
Which
a
are those
menu,
devices?
a
Can you
restaurant
give?
menu is different from a poem, because
Okay.
a restaurant a menu is just a, a set of words that, I mean, a menu is just like, a set of words. They don't have that literariness to it. Whereas,
Mhm.
say, a poem, so a poem has literariness in the sense there is a use of, different literary devices. There's a different kind of use of language and linguistics
Exactly.
in it.
Exactly. You're completely correct. Give me examples of devices. Ritik.
So personification, oxymoron,
Figures of
something like that.
speech, right? Figurative language.
Yes, sir. Figures of speech.
Now, you were taught figures of speech in school, right? हाँ ना, स्कूल में पढ़ाया था figures of speech.
yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
पर
Several
वो
times.
क्यों आता है, किसने पढ़ाया था आपको? So why does a poet use simile or metaphor or personification?
Sir, just to because derive more meanings out of the context given.
Exactly. You like the way you did here. Is this document visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
इसको आपने इसमें ट्रांसफॉर्म किया, राइट? You use other set of rules like this. You have broken this down. So you have followed different convention of writing. Instead of writing like this, you have written it like this, right? So you have followed a different way of writing. And why did you do that? So that you will have a different set of meanings that can be produced through that text, right? Is that clear? So literariness is what you did here. The form that you gave to that utterance, right? You gave form to it. So form produces literariness. Can you see this? And these are the devices. ये छोटी छोटी लाइन में तोड़ देना वाक्य को, उसे devices कहते हैं. Devices is the techniques through which you produce symbolic connotative meanings rather than denotative meanings, right? So you use those tricks, techniques, devices to produce a range of meanings that are different, even philosophical. I am hungry may sound philosophical. Why? Because it is put in a certain way. Can you see this? I am hungry. Also brings out certain desperation here. Instead of I am hungry, you read it in a different way. So these are the signals, different kind of techniques that you have used to make something literary, right? So the object of study of literature, going back to Eichenbaum, is study of techniques and devices or different land, or you can say different codes, you can say literary codes and conventions. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Anyone has questions about this? Doubts किसी को? So what is Russian formalism? Russian formalism is called Russian formalism because the scholars were Russian, wrote in Russian, and they defined that study of criticism is a study of literariness. Scientific study of literariness is what they study. And this literariness is set of convention, codes, techniques, devices that writers use, which means different form that they give to language. Is that much clear for everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Shikha? Okay. Okay. Right. So let's take the next step here. The next step is Roman Jakobson, right? Building upon Saussure, talks about, again we are discussing literariness, right? We are going into the depth now of literariness. और अब के बाद अगर कोई आपको पूछे कि आप लिटरेचर में क्या पढ़ते हो तो उसका जवाब दीजिए ना, हम लिटरेरीनेस पढ़ते हैं, तो वो कभी भी आपको ये फिर से सवाल पूछेगा नहीं लाइफ में, राइट?
Sir, they will think that we gave them a petty answer.
No, they won't understand it. You
Yeah,
can say
that's
it's
why.
profound for you to understand.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So Jakobson said that language has 6 functions. आप 6 प्रकार के काम कर सकते हो भाषा के साथ, yeah? और वो कौन कौन से हैं? Let's see that. What are the 6 functions of, because that is what is connected to our topic of literariness. Can you see this? What I am sharing?
Yes, sir.
These are the 6 functions of language given by Russian formalist named Roman Jakobson, pronounced as Jakobson, right? Okay. So in a linguistic situation, for example, मैं आप लोगों से बात कर रहा हूँ, so I am addresser and you are addressee when I am talking to you, right? जो आपसे बात कर रहा है. So if I am sending WhatsApp message, then I am the sender and you are the receiver. Is that much clear? Very
Yes, sir.
basic. फिर एक
Yes,
कॉन्टेक्स्ट होता है जिसमें ये होता है, जैसे कि अभी हम लोग क्लासरूम के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बात कर रहे हैं, राइट? हाँ ना, that is the
Yes, sir.
situation. That's the situation where I am teacher, you are student, and this is the classroom context. So there is a context, right? And there is a contact. Contact क्या है हमारा? Google Meet, virtual platform, and oral language, virtual platform. So that is called contact. Now, as we discussed, right, there is this code. कोड इज व्हाट वी डिस्कस्ड इन सश्योर, रिमेंबर। सिग्निफायर को सिग्निफाइड से जोड़ने वाली जो रूल आपने सीखा है उसे कोड कहते हैं, राइट? और एक मैसेज है जो मैं आपको दे रहा हूं, आई एम टेलिंग यू समथिंग, दैट इज द मीनिंग। सो दिस इज अ लैंग्विस्टिक सिचुएशन। एनी डाउट्स अबाउट दिस?
No, sir.
Anything that you have not understood? Anybody?
Sir, what's the difference between context and message?
Message is what I am speaking just now. What I am telling you is the message, right? Context is the situation. Classroom की situation है where you are a student and I am a teacher.
Okay,
Is
sir.
that clear? Context is situational and it has associated with the roles of the speaker and the listener, or the sender and the receiver, right? And message is what I'm telling you. Contact is the channel through which I'm telling you. It's oral as well as using virtual digital platform called Google Meet. ये आपको मैं फेस टू फेस कहूंगा तो कांटेक्ट अलग हो जाएगा। अब क्लासरूम सिचुएशन में अगर आप वर्चुअल की जगह पे एक्चुअल क्लासरूम में बैठे होते तो ये कांटेक्ट अलग हो जाता, राइट? समझ में आया?
Yes, sir.
Or code is what you have internalized, the language. Both of you and I have no one language, English or Hindi, whatever we are using. So is this linguistic situation clear?
Yes, sir.
Now in this situation, there are 6 ways of using language, according to Jakobson. One is when whatever you are saying has something to do with context. For example, I am saying this is very hot outside. बाहर बहुत गर्म है, so I am referring to certain conditions around me, right? That is called referential use of language, when I am using language to refer to something. Or I say that the water is becoming warm. I am referring to the situation and the surroundings. That is called referential use of language. If I am focusing on you, right, the audience, if I tell you, please pay attention, right, where the focus of the message is on you, audience. पहले में focus of the attention किस पे था? हवामान पे था, बहुत गर्मी हो रही है। दूसरे में क्या है? Focus आपके पर है, please pay attention. Such kind of language is called conative. The word that he uses is conative. The third is when the focus of the message is on the channel. जैसे आप सुन के पक गए होंगे, am I audible? Am I visible? इसे fatigue language कहते हैं. When you are checking the contact, when you say hi on WhatsApp, you are checking whether there is connection established between you, right? You are acknowledging a connection. That is called fatigue use of language. So telephone उठा के hello आप कहते हो. Hello क्या है? You are checking whether there is communication channel established. You get what is fatigue? जहाँ पे focus है channel के ऊपर. Anyone, any doubts? Shikha, Pankti, Riddhi, Satsam. Any doubts about fatigue?
Sir, no doubts as
Yeah, Satsam bolo. No doubt.
No, no doubts.
Okay. Now let's look at the next function of language called metalingual. Metalingual is used when language is used to talk about itself. Right? Can anyone give me an example?
Sir, could you please repeat example of what?
Okay. Metalingual is when language is used to talk about itself. लैंग्वेज के बारे में ही आप लैंग्वेज यूज कर रहे हो, इसे मेटालिंगुअल फंक्शन कहते हैं. Anyone can give me an example?
Sir, the chat box. If I
The
type a
chat?
message in the chat box,
No.
because if the contact
And
is Google Meet,
that
then
is
the
static.
code will be.
Yeah. Code will be the language that we are using, right?
Hmm.
But if I ask you this sentence, do you understand the meaning of word fatigue? This is called metalingual function. When I am using language to talk about language itself. If I ask you, do you understand what I am saying? This is called metalingual function. मैं जो कह रहा हूँ आपको समझ में आ रहा है? यानी मेरे शब्द आपको समझ में आ रहे हैं? So I am talking about my words and whether you have understood. So I am using language to talk about my language. That is called metalingual. And the best example of this is grammar. Grammar is metalingual because it's written in English or it is written in a particular language and it talks about the language itself. Okay. Language is used to talk about itself. It's called metalingual function. Anyone not understood?
No, sir, understood.
No, understood, sir.
ये क्वेश्चन ही मेटालिंगुअल है जो भी मैंने पूछा आपको.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And finally is poetic use of language. And this is what is important for us as students of literature, right? And this is what he means by literature, is when the focus of the message is on the message itself. Focus of the message is on the message itself. That is called poetic use of language. Let's take this. Can you see this word file? ये word दिखाई दे रहा है आपको?
No, sir.
No, sir. Your screen is on the.
I will change that.
Yes.
Now, if you look at this first sentence, yesterday I went into town and brought a lamp. The focus is on a particular situation where I am telling you that I went to town yesterday and brought a lamp. Right? I am giving you information about what I did yesterday. Right? The emphasis is on what I did yesterday. If I tell you this, मैंने कल क्या किया? Right? That is the information that I'm giving you. Right? But if you look at this, then the focus of the message is on the words itself. It has turned, the message is now turned on itself. It has become self-reflexive. Message says, look at me. Message is saying, look at me as a message. Don't look at me as information. This
Sir,
is
can you
what
maybe give another example because this was not very
I
clear.
am hungry. If I tell you this just now, I am giving you information because I am actually hungry. हाँ, मुझे भूख लगी है. आपको लगी है कि नहीं पता नहीं. So I am giving you information about a hunger that I feel as a person to you, right? But if you look at this, the focus of the message is not on my hunger. It is on the statement I am hungry itself. I am hungry ये statement के ऊपर ही आप focus कर रहे हो. आप information जो मैं दे रहा हूँ उसके पर नहीं focus कर रहे हो. It's a difficult idea to understand because it's abstract. It is language that the message focuses on itself. I says look at I as I, not I as Sachin. Grammatical subject I को I की तरह ही देखो. I am hungry, and it can mean anything. right? What can it mean? Does it mean मुझे भूख लगी है as a person? Does it describe facts of my hunger, or
No, sir.
what does it bring out? What does it focus upon? The focus has shifted, right? Clearly.
Yes.
It falls on what now?
So just the fact that there is hunger, but it does not mean that a particular person is hungry. Or say when I say I am hungry, we have to focus on the statement that I am hungry and not the fact, the information, like you said, that
Right.
Riddhi is hungry.
Hmm. It's another way of enunciation here. The way enunciation is process of communication, right? यहाँ पे enunciation क्या हो रहा है? यहाँ पे enunciation ये हो रहा है कि मुझे भूख लगी है, अब क्लास बंद करना पड़ेगा मुझे, मैं खाना ढूंढता हूँ. ये enunciation हो रहा है. यहाँ पे enunciation क्या हो रहा है कि focus is on, as somebody said, on hunger. But which hunger? Any hunger. It may be hunger for success. It may be hunger for somebody's companionship. It may be hunger for wealth. It may be hunger for sexual desire. It may be hunger for love. It may be hunger for fame. Right? What it takes it out of its specificity, right? And it makes it symbolic by turning upon itself. That's what he said. Message is focused on itself. Okay. One more idea from Russian formalism. And I'm sure these things are, this will change the way you look at art. Right? And it comes from another Russian formalist called Victor Shlovisky. Victor Shlovisky, in his very famous essay called Art as Technique, or Art as Device, that is the name of his essay, very famous one. He says that function of art, right? What does art do? Right? And art has a very particular function, according to Shlovisky. And that function is to de-automatize our habitual perception. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by that is, you drink water, right? How many of you drink water?
All of us, sir.
But what has happened is that you don't experience the wateriness of water when you drink. The first time that you tasted water has become so habitual action that it has made you almost automatic. It has made it algebraic. That's the phrase he uses. Means मैंने ये हाथ से उठाया पिया, मुझे ही पता नहीं चला, उतना मैकेनिकल है. It is reduced to, और पानी का experience is momentary in my mouth, right? It is reduced, the experience is reduced to bare minimum. Experience of wateriness, its taste, its flavor or absence of flavor, which is never there. Water always has a flavor and fragrance or it has its uh, color as well. But I have stopped noticing it. The experience is reduced to mere ritual automatic activity. So function of art is to restore wateriness of water. So art uses devices to defamiliarize our life. Art, function of art is to defamiliarize.
So to defamiliarize.
Life experience and perception of life.
So
So
can
he
you
uses,
tell
yeah,
the same thing
stoniness
if I say?
of stone. Pardon?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you tell me the same thing in context if I say if I paint clouds as pink or orange and not blue?
Yes. तो क्या होता है? Very good.
So usually we have that notion that clouds are blue, but then if I paint them pink or orange or anything, any other color, still the cloudness stays in that.
Yes. You are made to, the observer is made to revisit one's perception of cloud. आज तक तो हमने क्लाउड ब्लू ग्रे डार्क देखा है, वाइट, बट पिंक आया तो यू गो बैक टू योर एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ क्लाउड एंड यू से अरे ऐसा भी होता है क्लाउड, राइट? योर परसेप्शन इज halted, perception is slowed down by art. So the function of art is to increase your experiences and decrease the speed of perception. Your perception meets with obstacles.
So can we say that art in a way makes us more conscious about the little things that we have become so used to? That
Exactly. So that's why in still life you find people drawing apples. आप सबने दुनिया में apples देखे, right? The apples क्यों draw करते? Because you are in presence of appleness of apple. So your perception slows down and it becomes more alive instead of mechanical. You art allows you to see the same world in a different way that you live. Your perception, and he says stoniness of stone is uh, uh, experienced in painting. When you see a painting of rock, then the rockiness of rock is re-experienced, which you have stopped noticing. You have become so mechanical that you have not really observed your two-wheeler. कहाँ पे उसको छोटे स्क्रैच है, कहाँ पे धूल है, क्या पे कॉइल लगा है. You stop. How does it smell? उसका टेम्परेचर क्या है? You have become so automatic. Life is so automatic and mechanical that art reverses the perception of life by slowing it down. And he gives example of Tolstoy, where he describes how man is flogging a horse. Now he does that by describing it in detail. उसने हाथ उठाया और जोर से घोड़े के पिछवाड़े पर मारा उसने, and horse jumped, and there was a kind of wound on horse's back, and then horse was disturbed. The man did it again with more force. So he gives a detailed description of man flogging, so that you recover experience of being flogged, the cruelty involved in that. So writers use all sorts of devices to defamiliarize, right? So you use metaphors in your life like, right? आप किसी को कह सकते हो you are a donkey. It's a metaphor, right? Now this is so familiar metaphor that it has become habitual. Its meaning is lost. But if you say good girl, uh, Khachar, whatever, then you are defamiliarizing the metaphor here. So art defamiliarizes metaphors and similes that have become cliched by everyday experiences. You get how language of poetry functions. I wandered as lonely as a cloud that floats over high vales and hills, and suddenly I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Have you studied daffodils?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I wandered lonely as a cloud. So he compares his wandering with that of floating of a cloud in order to defamiliarize what? Can anyone tell me? The act of wandering. मैं कैसे घूम रहा था, भटक रहा था, घूम नहीं रहा. कैसे? जैसे बादल हवा में बहता है वैसे. Absolutely directionless and lonely. I wandered as lonely as a crowd. So simile is used to defamiliarize the experience of wandering. Everybody has wandered, right, in your life. It's different from walking. Wandering is when wandering and walking में क्या difference है?
Sir, wandering is aimless, whereas walking is you
Exactly.
have to go somewhere.
And have you ever wandered?
Yes, sir. I think all of us have at some
But you have
point in
done
our
it
life.
so mechanically that you have not noticed how you wander.
Yes, sir.
So poets do that,
So
right?
sometimes we also aimlessly walk, na.
तो उसे ही wander कहते हैं.
हाँ वो तो पता है
Aimlessly
सर
walk
लेकिन ऐसे
करने को. So so poets heighten your, so you revisit your own experience of wandering when Wordsworth compares wandering with floating of a lone cloud. It brings out its loneliness, it's adrift. It doesn't have any direction. And it is disconnected from earth. ऐसे घूम रहा है, वैसे घूम रहा था, right? Or I don't know if you've heard of this poem.
Yes.
You have read this poem?
Yes,
So why
sir.
do you think the poet repeats this? Red, red. Red, red rose. Why not only red rose?
So to create an emphasis.
Emphasis. Why? Why does poet want to emphasize that?
So because it makes you, it helps you defamiliarize, like you said, or make you more conscious about the characteristics of, or the characteristic that the poet is talking about, say the redness of a rose.
Right. He wants to defamiliarize the experience of redness. And why does he want to do that? What does he want to bring out from this repetition? Repetition is the figure of speech used, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Alliteration, repetition. पर क्यों डिफेमिलियराइज करना चाहता है? Any bright ideas?
So not getting properly.
He is defamifying redness of rose. क्यों? इतना intent to do what? Pankti, Riddhi, want to try? Shikha, who may have woken up by now.
Sir, I believe that when you become more observant when you have to recreate something, be it painting or poems or even thoughts, and maybe we do uh, emphasize on such things, and we try to make it bring some aspect which is something different, just like I told pink clouds, or maybe if I just
So is it merely for making it different? Red repeat करके सिर्फ different बनाना चाहता है या और कुछ मकसद है उसका?
or maybe to bring observation, maybe to to get
Familiarize the
awareness.
experience of redness of the rose, right? You re-experience the redness, defamiliarize redness of the rose. But why does he want to do that? Just to be different, as you say, or something else? Do you think it becomes, if I take this out, then what happens? अब क्या लगता है ये poem क्या हो रही है? Do you think something is lost? My love is like a red rose that's newly sprung in June. Do you think something is lost in that?
So like we were talking about, earlier, we were talking about the literariness of a particular text. So when we say
Right.
my love is like a red rose, it sounds very ordinary. But when
Very
you
good.
add
And when you make it
another
red,
red, when you say my love is like a red rose, it gives that it adds that literariness to this particular sentence.
right. And what is that literariness? You are right. Absolutely. Do
So
you
the
think?
effect that it creates, I don't know
Ah,
how to
exactly,
explain it. I can't put it into words
exactly,
right now, but
exactly, exactly. What effect? You are right.
I am
You are
unable to
absolutely.
explain it, sir. I feel it, but I am not able to.
Can you say that it brings out the intensity of passion
Yes,
of
sir.
redness?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The redness is defamiliarized to bring out its intensity and passion of this, as you say, literariness, symbolicness, right? The symbol red stands for passion, and you can feel that intensity through repetition. Can you say that?
Yes,
And
sir.
it's a newly sprung in June. Not any rose, it's newly sprung in June. And then he compares his love with a melody that's sweetly played in tune. Right? Look at these similes here. Like है तो simile है ना? right? So you studied figures of speech, but now you study why figures of speech are used the way they are used, right? To bring out, so when you compare love with a sweet melody, you are defamiliarizing what? सिमिली इस्तेमाल कर रहे क्या defamiliarize हो रहा है?
So the standard way of looking at love.
Exactly. And what is it that is brought out from this comparison of with melody?
So different ways of looking at love.
What is this difference? You are right.
Different connotations.
Which connotations specifically? What do you associate with melody?
Song.
So is there musicality and songness to love?
So we can, in a way, yes.
Yeah,
So that is what is
metaphorically.
brought out, right?
Yes, sir.
There is something song-like in love that is sweet. There is song-like sweetness in love, and there is freshness of red rose in his love.
Okay.
Right? You defamiliarize love by several ways. Clear? What we mean by defamiliarization.
So can we say that repetition for that matter? So can we like I mean, this line comes to my mind from Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness when he sees when the protagonist he sees the Africans for the first time and he says horror horror horror.
Oh,
So that
so what
particular
do you defamiliarize?
sorry
He's
sir.
announcing the death of Mitza Kurtz, right? Mr.
Oh
Kurtz.
yes sorry yes
He's dead.
yes
And he's talking about that horror.
horror yes sorry yes. So horror
Right?
horror
So
horror.
and why is that repetition? In order to intensify and bring out the real experience of horror, which you have forgotten because of excessive familiarization.
Okay.
It is being defamiliarized, right? So going back to this, object of study of literature is literariness, techniques and devices, because these techniques and devices defamiliarize life experiences and perception. Clear? Why is object of study of literature literariness? Because these devices, and these devices constitute this form, and that's why it's called formalism. Right? It's 1 o'clock already. You may have another class just now.
Yes, sir. We have from 1:10.
So we'll take a break. We'll stop here for today.
Okay.
Right? So you will read up. Now you all of you have to keep reading parallelly. Remember that. If you are not reading, then you are lost. Right? Read up from Selden and from Habib on Russian formalism and structuralism.
Sure, sir. We'll do
Right?
it.
So that, after tomorrow's presentation by Pankti, I think now it's far more easier for Pankti to make a presentation because we have discussed that essay. A lot of important points are already covered. After that, we will start something called post-structuralism.
So, sir, Russian formalism over here?
Yes, we will keep on talking about structuralism and Russian formalism for a long time. Just like Marxism, ये खत्म नहीं होगा, अब वो अलग अलग फॉर्म में आपके सामने आएगा, जैसे स्ट्रक्चरलिस्ट मार्क्सिज्म, स्ट्रक्चरलिस्ट साइकोएनालिसिस, वैसे फिर
But the main theme is over, right?
The main key ideas I have given. Now we will look at various versions of Marxism and what do I say?
Russian formalism and
Psychoanalysis, रशियन फॉर्मलिज्म, स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म के की आइडियाज हमने डिस्कस कर लिए, राइट? So
Sir,
if you, yeah,
I doubt if I have anything left to, present for tomorrow
doesn't
after
matter.
all
You
of
can just you
good
quickly do
discussion.
that. You can quickly just go over what take a walk us through that essay. बहुत हो गया, right?
Okay, sir. It would be like today's presentation, like you did the.
Finish it off.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Right. Okay, so take care because corona is growing rampantly in Surat as well as in other parts. So be careful, take all precautions. Yeah, and have a good day. We'll meet tomorrow at 11:30.
Yes, sir.
And please
Okay.
bring all the questions and doubts from whatever we have discussed today,
Sure, sir.
as well
Will
as
do.
uske pehle ka structuralism.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Have
sir.
a good day. Yeah, welcome. And I think Tatsam, you will be posting these recordings on that drive, mein, na?
Yes, sir.
Right.
So I think you can open it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
पर आज का भी वो इसमें ऐड हो जाएगा ना?
हाँ सर, आज का और प्रीवियस क्लास का दोनों बाकी था, तो that I will add today.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
अरे सर